Welcome to a Vox Markets investor webinar in conjunction with Turner Pope. This evening, we have Tim Yeo, Chairman, and David Ryan, CEO of Powerhouse Energy. The guys will be taking us through their current presentation and answering questions at the end. If you have a question you want to submit, please do it in the comment box on the right. Okay, without further ado, I'll now hand you over to Tim and David.
Thank you very much, Justin, and thank you to everyone who's joined the webinar this afternoon. Our company, Powerhouse Energy, is tackling two of the world's biggest environmental challenges: climate change and the very urgent need to replace fossil fuels with cleaner energy sources, and plastic waste, billions of tons of which go to landfill every year and some ends up in the oceans. These are very important environmental goals, and using our technology to reach them will also deliver big benefits to shareholders. Dave Ryan, our CEO, will explain the technology in more detail presently. In essence, what Powerhouse Energy does is to convert unrecyclable waste into a syngas which can then produce either power or very high quality hydrogen. Good enough quality to be a transport fuel. And of course, replacing diesel in trucks and buses produces a third environmental gain, which is an immediate improvement in air quality. The box in the top right-hand corner of this slide explains our business model. PHE's revenue will come mainly from licensing other companies to deploy our technology. By doing that, we can minimize the capital that is needed to grow our business, so we won't have to keep coming back to investors to fund our future growth, even if that is rapid. We will need strong partners for this deployment, and the first one is Peel Environmental here in the UK. At the bottom of this slide is the timeline which traces the company's progress over the last 13 years. Much of that progress has been in the last 2 or 3 years. I'd also like to mention that over the last 12 months, we have considerably strengthened the board and the management team at PHE, bringing in the skills and the expertise and knowledge that the company needs. Next slide, please. The purpose of our fundraise last week was to enable PHE to help fund the special project vehicle which will build our first commercial scale plant at the Protos site in Cheshire. By contributing to the cost of building this plant alongside Peel, who are also funding it, we're able to bring forward the date on which financial close for that SPV will be reached. In turn, that brings forward the date when the plant will be completed, commissioned, and start to operate. And most important for shareholders, it brings forward the date on which the license fee revenue, which will form the bulk of our future profits, starts to be received. Financial close also does something else. It triggers the start of the 6-month exercise period during which Peel can exercise their options to subscribe for 371 million more shares. When they do that, hopefully before the end of 2022, another £10 million of cash will come into Powerhouse Energy. It will put the company in the strongest financial position in the whole of its history. So by doing this fundraise, we have substantially reduced the risk of delay in getting our first commercial scale project built. But we are nevertheless going to stick to our business model of relying on licensing our technologies and not on becoming a project developer. Next slide, please. Peel is a key partner for us, and it is a very powerful UK company with massive resources. Once it pays us £500,000, it will have the exclusive UK rights to deploy our technology across the UK. And it is an ideal partner because it's a leading infrastructure investor and developer in its own right. Peel has already identified 77 sites where our technology can be deployed. 15 of these are in their own ownership, and plans for our second and third sites are already well underway. Now, over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Tim. So between Peel and Powerhouse, we have an aligned project delivery strategy. Peel are going to deliver the project, so they will engage with the contractors, undertake the planning preparation, engaging with councils and customers for all the products. Powerhouse will provide technical assurance services and engineering guidance through the project period. Powerhouse are paid for those services, which means, as Tim has said, we have limited exposure in a normal project to the capital risk. Our first project at Protos Energy Park in Ellesmere Port is in the middle of Peel's planned plastic park. This plastic park will handle up to 300,000 tonnes per annum of plastics through recyclers, converting plastics to oil and other potential products. Powerhouse will take the residues from those recyclers and they will be directed to our process. The process on Ellesmere Port is sized at 35 tonnes per annum. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. So here is a simple model of the Powerhouse DMG. DMG stands for Distributed Modular Generation. The model represents the 24 or so skids that typically will make up a site. The plastics are shredded and converted within our thermal conversion chamber. In simple terms, we drop plastic into a very hot environment, typically 1100 degrees centigrade. The plastics quickly melt and vaporize. And our technology and much of the IP is related to the chemical engineering control of that transition. We control the environment such that we produce an energy-rich gas. If we are in only power generation, we target methane. If we are in hydrogen production, we target a little more hydrogen as part of the gas. Our typical process will generate 2 tonnes per day of hydrogen, and it will create 3.8 megawatts of power with 3.2 megawatts exported. The process has been reviewed by experts, and certainly Powerhouse has spent a lot of engineering time developing it. It has been 10 years from inception to now reality of what we are going to build on the Protos site. Next slide, please. The Protos site was signed in 2019. Last year, we submitted a planning application, and as an example of the ease of consenting of the process, we received planning approval within 6 months. We also undertook a front-end engineering design. This was specific for the Protos site around the requirements that Peel had put on Powerhouse and the process. Even through the period of COVID-19, this front-end engineering design was completed to schedule. And we took great satisfaction from the timely completion of that front-end engineering design. Since September, we have been undertaking the activities that we need that engineering for. So typically, we've been undertaking formal safety reviews, third-party validation, and most importantly, from a contract perspective, Peel have been engaging with contractors to firm up prices. The one aspect that we have suffered from through COVID is those negotiations are far more difficult on a Zoom meeting rather than meeting face to face. We are nearing completion of it, and certainly the goal is to complete in the near future. The thought of further negotiations with potential third-party investors into the SPV and the potential of some delay being introduced is what drove the board to the raise, as Tim described earlier. Now, with the monies raised, Peel and Powerhouse together will engage with the long lead items procurement, and that should be initiated very shortly. Peel themselves are ongoing with their construction activities on site, and some of you may have seen some photos of site preparation going on, and Peel are now preparing the access road. Later on in the year, when we are fully into above ground construction, we will put up a time-lapse camera so that everyone can see what is going on the site. Next slide, please. So Peel are addressing the UK. However, the value of the technology and the potential for rollout is far greater on an international basis. Over the last 2 years, a multiple number of potential developers have come to Powerhouse. Some of those are in developed locations. Some of those are in locations where the revenues and the potential margin for Powerhouse will be very attractive. Others are coming on a single project basis. The board's strategy is that for the more attractive locations, we will only engage in exclusivity arrangements when we've commissioned Powerhouse. This is basically to give us a good financial standing and technical standing to enter into competitive negotiations with the many parties that are coming to us in exciting markets. What may happen in between is individual project developers who are not so focused on plant performance and have a degree of confidence as early adopters. We may engage with them on a project by project basis, and certainly some of those discussions and dialogues are ongoing, and projects are being worked through early planning in Poland and in Australia. Next slide, please. And what does this mean to Powerhouse and our revenues? So there is a potential stream of exclusivity arrangements. These may vary from location to location, but certainly the £500,000 negotiated for the UK would be a sound indication of what can be achieved as a minimum in internationally developed locations. The minimum target set in the UK of £500,000 per annum will be also carried forward. And indeed, in many parts of the world, we're confident that the license fee secured from the DMG can be improved on the UK situation. We do not wait just to be paid by license fees. Through the project, in pre-project and the project execution phase, Powerhouse provide technical services. Those technical services will vary, and indeed, one hopes will grow through the life as Powerhouse becomes more experienced and more robust. Those fees on their own will allow Powerhouse to pay for our overhead, our engineering and our development teams. That means the license fee with the marginal increase in overhead associated with the operational support in the license. We are not the operator, we only provide some technical assurance services. That will appear mainly, that will appear and be generate significant margin from that income. In the longer term, Powerhouse may engage with manufacturers. This is not necessarily because we want to take on manufacturing capability. It is more that we need to take control of the quality and the schedule of the Powerhouse DMG components if we are going to go for multi-site rollout. All in all, the licensing model means that we are not looking for capital investment on each project. It will be our partner's responsibility to deliver the construction. Again, we'll stress that our engagement in the Protos special purpose vehicle is a one-off. It's related to us being in the first of a kind and protecting the schedule, which is above all else what's driving myself and my team in terms of getting engineering complete and getting construction underway with a view to commissioning the plant next year. Tim, I'll let you summarize.
Thank you very much, Dave. Last week, the International Energy Agency told the Financial Times that in order for the world to keep the rise in global average surface temperatures down to only 1.5 degrees centigrade, that was the target set by the Paris Accord in 2015, to do that, worldwide hydrogen production has to increase 90 times in the next 9 years. That's a 90-fold increase by 2030. Here at Powerhouse Energy, we want to ensure that a British company and a British technology contributes to that extraordinary growth. And we believe we can do this because we have a sound business model which provides local solutions to a global problem. The actions we've taken since the start of 2021 have significantly de-risked this model and put us on a sound financial footing to achieve our goals. We have a powerful UK business partner in the form of Peel, and in coming months, we will identify other similar powerful partners in markets overseas. Before Christmas, I promised investors that Powerhouse Energy was getting down to business. In 2021, we've hit the ground running, and that's how we intend to continue. Thank you for listening, and now we'll have a Q&A session.
Excellent presentation, guys, and I know a lot of people are excited about this. We've got a lot of people tuning in, so we've got David, of course, and Tim here ready to answer questions. Are you ready to go, guys? Because there are lots of questions coming in. I don't want any long politician answers, okay? Otherwise, we'll be here till next week. But it's very popular, a lot of questions. So let's start off, first of all, first question here, I think maybe to Tim. Please, can you explain more about the special purpose vehicle to fund the Protos development and why you would do it that way as opposed to directly through the company?
Yes, well, the point is that Powerhouse Energy is not actually a project development company. We're a technology company, and we plan to license our technology to other companies who will deploy it and we'll receive a license fee. So it was never our intention to actually build this first commercial plant ourselves. We always intended to do it through a special project vehicle, and that was going to be funded by our partners, Peel Environmental. But we decided we could actually accelerate the process a bit if we were able to put a bit of money into the SPV and part fund it ourselves. So that's what we decided to do last week, and that's why we raised the money last week. It also means that not only will we bring forward the date on which financial close for the SPV is reached, and therefore the construction and the completion and the commissioning and eventually the license fees, it also means that because there's some items of equipment quite expensive for which there are long lead times, we can start buying those now so we don't get held up during the construction period.
Excellent stuff. Okay. Where will the hydrogen be produced at Protos be sold? Is there any infrastructure or are there consumers nearby? Dave?
Oh, Justin, that's a great question. There are hydrogen users nearby. However, they are industrial hydrogen users. The scale of hydrogen they need compared to what we produce is significantly greater. So it's unlikely they'll take a supply from us. Our hydrogen is more for buses and lorries, fleet consumers, and Peel, as the asset owner, is talking to local councils and local fleet operators, and possibly they might take our hydrogen. However, we're cognizant of the fact that the hydrogen market is nascent. We've added to the process design, and we now can sell packets of hydrogen that Peel can sell on to consumers who might be a bit further away, so maybe 20 miles away.
Okay, next question. I saw some criticism online about the Polish deal. So is there any more you can say about the plans for Poland and other countries, Tim?
Yes, our interest in Poland was really sparked by the fact that everyone knows that Poland's heavily dependent on coal, and the EU are very keen to help Poland get off that dependence. So it's an attractive market for other forms of energy, and that's will also mean that the EU is willing to support that transition away from coal with subsidies, and the funds that the EU are planning to spend post-COVID to help the economic recovery are very large indeed, and Poland is eligible for a big chunk of that. So there's a high probability that in Poland there will be capital grants available to roll out our plants, and that's what our partners there are investigating. I expect we can say a bit more about this in the next few weeks. We believe that there will be, we should be able to identify the city where we're going to start rolling our plants out, and the help which they hope to get, say, via the EU funds. So I think Poland is a useful model for us. We've got a partner there who paid us to have the right to deploy our technology, and that's the model which we expect to replicate in other markets overseas, and we are in preliminary talks with a number of other countries.
Excellent stuff. Okay, how quickly will Peel move to developing the second project with Protos under construction or straight after, Dave?
When Protos is under construction, indeed, we're already doing the pre-project planning. We've already been instructed to do pre-project planning on 2 sites, one in Scotland and one in Manchester. Peel are engaging the local communities on an informal basis, including the councils, and that the formal consultation will start as soon as the engineering is complete.
Okay. What are the drivers of the global hydrogen market? That's a big one.
The hydrogen market, or we are not acting just in the hydrogen market. We're driven by 3 market drivers, which vary from country to country. So nascent hydrogen pickup would be in the developed world. So waste to hydrogen will be in developed world, but we're also very active engaging with the less developed parts of the world where power is a driver. So they all have plastic, and obviously in other parts it is the plastics and plastic mountain that is a driver for consumers for us.
Understood. What needs to happen for Peel to exercise its option? It would be good to see them exercise sooner rather than later. I know you touched this in the presentation, but good to clarify if you could, Tim.
Yes, certainly. And also we would like to see Peel exercise its option. Naturally, that was an option granted last September when Peel backed our fundraise at that time. And they have an option to invest another £10.2 million into new shares in PHE. What will trigger that process is when we reach financial close on the Protos and the SPV, which is going to build the plant at Protos. Once that financial close is declared, which we hope will be by the end of Q1, then that starts a 6-month exercise period. So Peel have to exercise the option within 6 months of financial close being reached. So we've got a very high probability that another £10 million will come into this company before the end of 2021.
Okay. How will the project compete with other users of plastic polymer waste collected by local authorities in the country, Dave?
We won't actually be competing. We will take our supply of non-recyclable plastics from those recyclers. So basically, as the plastic recycling increases in the country, there are portions of that plastic that cannot be used by the recyclers, and that's what comes to us.
Understood. Okay. The company said it won't need government backing, but what about UKEF, which is Britain's state-backed export credit agency, which provides finance and insurance to help exporters win foreign sales and picks up the tab if the customer fails to pay? Tim?
Well, what we said was we don't think we're going to need a government subsidy in the way that some hydrogen producers will need. In terms of exports, we intend to appoint a principal partner in each of the geographical territories in which we operate, and those will normally be well-established businesses. So we shouldn't be exposed to credit risks in the way that people are exporting directly from this country. We're not going to build plants ourselves in the UK and try and sell them abroad. We're going to work by giving a license to a company in another country who will pay us a license fee. So the risk of credit, people defaulting, is not particularly high. We'd consider any form of government agency which might help us deploy our technology in other countries, but we don't anticipate a need for export guarantees.
Okay. What steps are you taking to avoid unintended hazardous residual waste issues from the generation of renewable energy from plastics and tyres, Dave?
Well, that's a couple of features. It's a specification that our customers will set on their plastic suppliers. So it defines that we can't have any contaminants. We undertake a regular testing of those materials as on a weekly or more frequent basis as we need. And then within the process, we are already cleaning out contaminants. Those contaminants are as we specify. If we see other contaminants in the gases, then they're arising from the plastic, so you just stop using that waste supplier, and or we'd add to the cleanup process to remove the contaminant.
Okay. What is the forecast completion date for the first working DMG plant, Tim?
Well, we don't have a forecast date. We're not going to make a forecast about that. We do have a target date, but this is a first-of-a-kind plant, and there are always going to be there are uncertainties in any first-of-a-kind construction, but the target is to try and get it completed by the end of 2021. But as I say, that is not a forecast. We will update investors with our progress once we get underway, and so we try and avoid any unpleasant surprises. And I think that there's a good chance we can reach our target, but we're not going to make a forecast, certainly not at this stage.
Okay. The company seems to be focusing now on using waste plastic as a feed. Has tyre crumb now been ruled out?
Justin, that's a good question. No, it hasn't been ruled out. It's just that Appeal, as our customer here in the UK building the first one, their vision is on plastics. Tyres in the UK are not so easily funded. So we plan to complete plastics here. The tyre chemical engineering and model is all ready to go. So it's likely that some of the early projects after the completion of Protos internationally will be on tyres, and indeed one of the projects we're chasing in Australia would be running on tyre shred.
Okay, so well researched private investors here. This is the next one, quite technical. Is it correct that the ceramic chamber has been replaced with a metal alloy and that is cheaper?
Cheaper didn't come into it. This is one of the early decisions. I've been with the company now 4 years, nigh on 4 years. It was immediately evident to me that the ceramic was going to offer us all sorts of challenges, not least from a health and safety perspective. Would it work? So we quickly abandoned that, went back to the drawing board and developed a fundamentally different design, which is what we've taken through concept now, generic design, and into commerciality here on Protos.
Will all the Peel projects be optimized for hydrogen, or will there be a mix of electricity and hydrogen?
Well, the plan is that in the UK, hydrogen will be our principal target. So they will be optimized for hydrogen. There may be other markets in other parts of the world where to be able to sell electricity is going to be more useful in those markets, and therefore not every plant that is licensed by us will be optimized for hydrogen. But I think in the UK, it's pretty clear that they will be.
Okay, a couple more questions here. Can you say a few words about the international patent coverage and intellectual property protection rights you have for the process, and just generally about competition?
So in terms of the patents, there's a family of patents that are UK, Europe, and the 120 or 130 countries covered by the International Patent Agency. Those patents are under review now. So we do not, one of the aspects is the chemical engineering and the knowledge within the process. Some of it is covered, addressed in the patents, and the rest of it is kept confidential. So that's how we protect ourselves from anyone who might be a competitor.
Okay. When I used to, I used to hold shares. Silly for me. I lost patience and sold before it went stratospheric. But people still say, thanks for highlighting Powerhouse, Justin. I got 1,000%. Now, to me, back then when I was talking about it, I always just say this project, it's like alchemy. It's taking waste that nobody wants. In fact, you get charged for putting somewhere, and you're changing that into clean energy. And it seems like alchemy. And it seems, and theoretically, the potential here is huge. But, in practical terms here, what's your vision and what is the potential here?
Well, I'll give you my vision. The world has got a crisis about the need to replace fossil fuels much more quickly than we're managing to do at the moment. And only last week, the International Energy Agency announced that if there's to be a chance of reaching the 1.5 degrees centigrade target for the rise in average global surface temperatures that was set by the Paris Accord in 2015, to have a chance of reaching that, hydrogen production globally has got to rise by 90 times by 2030. That's a 90-fold increase in production in 9 years. And what I would like to see is that the UK, which has always had a good understanding of climate change, will be one of the leading players in delivering that massive increase in hydrogen production. We've missed out on some of the other things. Apart from offshore wind, we're not really a leader in any renewable energy technology. And even with offshore wind, most of the turbines are still currently produced overseas. But I think in hydrogen, if the UK gets onto this quickly, and the government looks very interested in it, we could be a big player. And my vision is for PHE to be part of that process, to meet one of the world's most urgently needed energy technologies.
Yeah, and just to add in a line that I've used in the past, which is my own line, that I followed an investor event like this, where I followed on from a gold company. I use the line, "Plastic is my gold."
And that's, it's very important. I'm glad Dave's mentioned that, because of course the other environmental goal that we're going to help to deliver is to deal with what is another global problem, that is plastic waste, most of which is now going to landfill. There's a lot of it that's not recyclable. And of course, some of it's still going into the ocean. And by providing this technology, we're going to achieve another big environmental improvement. Well, I think we can just say that we have made very good progress in the last few months. The company is now in a stronger financial position than at any time in its previous history. It is ready to get started on building this first commercial scale plant, which is the overriding objective of the company now. That's our goal for 2021, to get that built. And we're delighted that our fundraise was backed by our biggest shareholder and by a leading institutional shareholder who first bought shares in the previous fundraise in September, who topped them up in the following few weeks, and has now added to them very substantially, despite the fact that the latest fundraise was carried out at more than double the price of the previous one.
Yeah,
And Dave, you're building a team of people now to help get on with this project, aren't you?
From September when we became funded, I've implemented a recruitment, and I've gone to the market and recruited some first-class engineering support, and we're moving into business development. So we're not only focusing on Protos and the development of the project, we're looking at alternatives where we can advance the technology and supporting the many inquiries we're getting internationally. I'd like to just touch on that the technology is very attractive in less developed parts of the world. It's simple to use, and therefore it's a means of for particular countries to get rid of huge plastic dumps. And those of us who have traveled internationally, maybe through Asia and Africa, would recognize that the challenge of plastic, which comes from huge dumps, and hopefully we can sell our process into these countries, support them with electricity generation, and getting rid of some of their power problems.
I think it's particularly encouraging for both Dave and myself to see that each time we announce anything or report on any progress, that stimulates further inquiry. So it just reinforces the impression that there is an enormous need for this technology, and it really comes in almost every region of the world, certainly across many European countries, certainly across North America, extensively in Asia, where I'm a fairly regular traveler to Asia myself. I'm conscious that although their environmental standards have risen enormously in the last 15 years, nevertheless, there are hideous problems of waste in many of those growing economies. So I think there's no doubt that this company is operating in an industry where the sky is the limit in terms of global demand. Obviously, there'll be competing technologies, but there's room for more than one company to make a big success here, and we're determined to try and do that ourselves.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Tim. The fact there is not going to be one single winner here. The challenge throughout the world is huge. So we see as complementary to some of the other technologies, particularly when other technologies might need to use a particular waste stream. We can take the remainder of the waste stream into our process. One of the other aspects that I get asked regularly by shareholders is the international liaison that we've announced. I think it's worth emphasizing that all the engagement, the MOUs we've made with international parties they're still running. Those parties are still interested, but typically a major company is looking to us to complete Protos, and then they will come in. So I have described in the past, Protos is vital to us, but hopefully once Protos is complete, there could well be many orders forthcoming from all those companies who've undertaken their technical due diligence on us, are comfortable with where we are today, and are waiting for to come and kick the tires on Protos. So that day is probably not far away now, and obviously is the focus of my attention.
But guys, thanks very much for that. And I don't know, the final question I was going to ask, you may have just covered this, is we did talk about the sort of next upcoming milestones, and you may have covered that. If you haven't, just quickly, what are the next couple of milestones you're hoping to achieve?
Well, I think the next one is financial close on Protos, which, as I say, will enable us to get really started on the construction process, and also triggers the start of the 6-month exercise period for the peel option. And the one after that clearly will be when we have the plant running, and that will be up to Dave to make sure we get there as quickly as possible.
Yep.
Excellent stuff, guys. It's good to chat to you. And next time we speak, maybe the internet will be running on hydrogen power, and I'll see it through to the end before the. Guys, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch up in the not too distant future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you.
Cheers now.